Electronic collation illegal, says INEC. Police warn NLC. And the writer says, INEC says IREV not for result collation. Labour leaders advised against intimidating voters. And another writer says, Uzodinma, others absent at peace accord. Derail, silver clash. Imo workers, banks shun strike. And this is our big news today on page 2, 8, and 13 of the Punch newspaper. Good morning, my lovely people. Thank you so much for always clicking on my videos to watch. I sincerely appreciate you all. And today I bring to you the Punch newspaper and Al Jazeera newspaper. Yeah, I will be sharing with you the headlines because the headlines I'm seeing here today, my lovely people, is worth knowing. Yeah, again we have another story here which says $51 billion debts. Federal government rules dwindling revenue. Reps condemn needless loans contract. And the writer says government promises to block leakages. Lawmakers decry high debt servicing. The story is on page 19 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says NPAN returns Kabiru as president. Emua joins ESCO. And that story is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Again, we have another story here which says old bank notes remains legal tender, says CBN. That story is on page 24 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says Obi faults Tinubu's 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget. And that story is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says UK police probe suicide of British-born Nigerian. That story is on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. Again, we have another story here which says federal government stops electricity tariff hike, insists on subsidy. That story is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. And those are the headlines we have from the Punch newspaper this morning. Okay, I move to the Al Jazeera newspaper, and our big news on Al Jazeera is census will hold soon, says Tinubu. And the writer says urges development of cutting-edge technology in gathering data. That story is on page 9 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says half-year oil and gas manufacturing sectors dominate bank loans with 55.5%. Wow, that story is on page 15 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. I don't know why I'm laughing, but there's so many things happening in Nigeria that makes me laugh, and our politicians, the more you look, the less you see. Again, we have another story here which says ATBUTH performs first laser surgery on kidney stones. That story is on page 6 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says court orders Niger government to reinstate Amana Kakanda. That story is on page 2 of Al Jazeera newspaper. Again, we have another story here which says Abidjan Lagos Highway corridor attacks $15.5 billion investment at AIF 2023, says Adesina. And that story is on page 16 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says IOM to capture IDPs in Benue. That story is on page 7 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says Kogi APC expresses concern over raid on chieftains. That story is on page 17 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says Akwa Ibom government refutes allegation of budget pending. That story is on page 6 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. And again, we have another story here which says NNPCL Atio introduced Nembi crude grade to international markets. And that story is on page 14 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. And these are the headlines we have on Al Jazeera newspaper this morning and the Punch newspaper, and I felt it is very important to read these headlines to you, to share these headlines with you, my lovely Nigerians. As usual, I do this twice or more in a week on my YouTube channel, so follow me for more newspaper review.